Have you ever noticed that the most consistent people in the world don't talk about motivation? They don't wake up every day feeling inspired. They don't wait for the perfect timing. They simply show up and do what must be done every single day. No debate. While some people wait to feel ready, these individuals have already finished the work. While many search for quick motivation through YouTube videos, these people have already trained, studied, and executed. And when others ask how they manage to stay consistent, the answer is never emotional. It points to something older and far deeper. In 10th century Japan, during the Heian period, there existed a concept that separated ordinary men from extraordinary ones. This idea had nothing to do with physical power or intelligence. It focused on what the Japanese called Yamato Damashii, the Japanese spirit, the inner force that moves the body even when the mind wants to quit. This principle produced warriors who could not be broken. It shaped generals who altered history. Centuries later, during World War II, it was heavily distorted and used by the Japanese government as a tool for militaristic propaganda and extreme nationalism. But the original meaning of Yamato Damashii had nothing to do with conquest or empire. At its core, it stood for one simple and extremely powerful idea: duty over emotion. Today, you'll learn what this ancient concept truly means and how it can shift you from someone who understands a great deal but acts very little into someone who takes action without hesitation. But first, I need to share the story of a man who possessed immense knowledge and lacked the courage to use it. Before we continue, something must be made clear. There are two kinds of motivation. The first is cheap motivation, which we can call excitement. The second is meaningful motivation, the reason behind action, which we can call ikigai. If you watched the previous video on this channel, you already know what that means. In this video, we'll focus on why excitement alone does not have the strength to take you where you want to go. I'm clarifying this now so there's no confusion moving forward. Before we continue, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. What action do you delay most in your life? What goal do you want to achieve, where you already know exactly what to do, but still keep searching for more information instead of acting? Share it in the comments, and also help others who comment. Someone may need advice in an area you've already experienced. Let's build a community of people who support one another and genuinely want everyone to improve. Thank you for your time and attention. Now, back to the video. Chapter 1. The Man Who Knew Everything and Did Nothing. The year is 950, during Japan's Heian period. Tadayoshi was 24 years old and had read more books than most men twice his age. Born into a noble family, he had access to Chinese classics, Buddhist writings, and the teachings of Confucius. While other young nobles spent their time on poetry and social gatherings, Tadayoshi studied military strategy, battle formations, and the philosophy of war. He dreamed of becoming a great warrior, perhaps even a general who would influence Japan's future. But he had a serious flaw. He could not act. Each morning, Tadayoshi woke with strong intentions. Today would be the day. Today, real training would begin. He would pick up his sword and train until his hands were raw. But something always interfered. He would discover another book, a new text describing a technique he hadn't fully understood. How can I train, he thought, without first mastering the theory? So he read, studied, and memorized. And by the time he felt prepared to act, the day was gone. Tomorrow, he told himself. Tomorrow I'll begin. Servants in the household started whispering. Other nobles laughed quietly behind his back. Tadayoshi, the warrior of books, they mocked. He can defeat you with knowledge, but never with a blade. The words hurt because they were accurate. He knew enough to instruct soldiers, yet he had never endured exhaustion, never felt the ache in his muscles after hours of training, never faced the discomfort that turns ideas into ability. One day, his father, a stern man who had served as a military advisor, looked at him and spoke words that would shatter most men. "You have the mind of a general and the heart of a scribe," he said. "Knowledge without action has no value. You are a ghost pretending to live." Tadayoshi did not sleep that night. His father's words echoed relentlessly. He knew they were true. All those years of study had changed nothing. He remained hesitant, weak, trapped in thought. The next morning, something changed. He didn't open a book. He left. Chapter 2. The Meeting in the Forest. Tadayoshi wandered through the forest near his family's estate. The air was cold. The sun had just risen. He didn't know what he was searching for. Perhaps clarity. Perhaps an excuse to return to his books. Then he heard it, a steady, repeated sound. Metal cutting through air. Wood striking wood. He followed the noise to a small clearing. There stood a man around 50 years old with graying hair tied back simply. His body bore old scars. He moved with a wooden sword, repeating the same motion again and again, hundreds of times. The same cut. The same stance. The same breathing. Tadayoshi watched silently. There was no emotion on the man's face. No sign of strain or satisfaction. Only movement, precise, consistent, unbroken. When the man finally stopped, Tadayoshi stepped forward. "Master," he said, using the title instinctively, unsure if it was earned. "I watched you train. Your discipline is unlike anything I've seen. Please teach me." The man examined him carefully. The fine clothing, the unworked hands, the posture of someone unfamiliar with labor. "No," he replied and turned away. "Wait," Tadayoshi said urgently. "I've studied the techniques. I know Sun Tzu. I understand the strategies of Chinese generals. I learn quickly." The man stopped. Slowly he turned back. His eyes were firm, unmoving. "You know techniques?" he said. "Good. Then use them yourself." And he walked away. Tadayoshi felt a sharp heat rise in his chest, shame, anger, and desperation all at once. "Please," he said, almost pleading. "I need to change. I need to become more than I am." The man stopped once more. This time, he remained silent for a long while. Finally, without turning around, he spoke. "You will give up." "I won't," Tadayoshi replied immediately. "Everyone gives up. I am not everyone." The man turned and examined Tadayoshi's face. He saw desperation there. But desperation was not enough. Desperation was only another emotion, and emotions fade. Still, perhaps this young noble needed to learn that himself. "Tomorrow," the man said, "before sunrise, come here. If you show up, I'll consider teaching you. If you don't ever return." Tadayoshi nodded eagerly. "I'll be here. I promise." The man almost laughed. Promises, as if promises held any real value. Chapter 3. The First Day. Tadayoshi didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the man's rigid expression. He heard the words again and again, "You're going to give up." He couldn't allow that to happen. Not this time. He reached the clearing an hour before dawn. The air was cold and the darkness heavy. He waited, shivering, until sunlight finally brushed the trees. The man appeared without a sound, as if he had always been there. He looked at Tadayoshi with what could have been surprise or disappointment. It was impossible to tell. "You came," the man said. It wasn't praise. It was a fact. "I said I would." "Words," the man muttered. "Today, we see if you have more than words." What followed was brutal. The man, who finally gave his name as Kaido, began with something simple, a basic stance. Knees bent, back straight, arms extended, holding a wooden sword. "This position," he explained, "is the foundation of everything." "How long?" Tadayoshi asked. "Until I tell you to stop." After 2 minutes, Tadayoshi's legs began to tremble. After 5, cold sweat ran down his back. After 10, every part of his body demanded release, demanded rest. "Master, I don't." "Silence," Kaido said calmly. He sat on a rock, watching Tadayoshi with the same unreadable expression. "Your mind is telling you to stop. It's lying." 15 minutes passed. Tears filled Tadayoshi's eyes, not from emotion, but from pain. "Stop," Kaido finally said. Tadayoshi collapsed forward, breathing hard, his legs shaking uncontrollably. He looked at Kaido, hoping for understanding or encouragement. Instead, he saw disappointment. 15 minutes, Kaido said. "And you already want to quit. Do you think battles last 15 minutes? Do you think enemies wait for comfort?" Tadayoshi lowered his head, overwhelmed by shame. Go home, Kaido said, standing. You don't have what it takes. Something shifted inside Tadayoshi. Something broke, or perhaps something awakened. No, he said, forcing himself upright on unsteady legs. I'll do it again. Kaido looked at him with renewed interest. You think motivation will save you? This anger you feel, it will fade. Tomorrow, you won't want to return. I'll come back. Why? Kaido asked. It wasn't rhetorical. It was a test. Tadayoshi opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. Wanting to be a warrior was a desire. Shame was a feeling. And Kaido was right. Feelings disappear. You don't know, Kaido said. And because you don't know, you won't last. He turned to leave. Wait, Tadayoshi shouted. Then tell me why I should return. Kaido stopped and turned slowly. Because it is your duty. Duty? Tadayoshi repeated, confused. To whom? To yourself. To the man you said you would become. Motivation is emotion. Duty is an order. Emotions change. Duty remains. He paused once more. We have a word for this. Yamato Damashii. The Japanese spirit. It isn't about wanting to act. It's about acting because that is who you are. Chapter 4. The second day and the first lesson. Tadayoshi returned the next day. Not because he wanted to. His body ached. His legs barely held him upright. Every muscle resisted movement. But he remembered Kaido's words. Duty remains even in the storm. Kaido was already there. This time, his face showed something different. Not approval, but acknowledgement. You're back. I said I would be. Yesterday, you said it with emotion, Kaido replied. Today, you say it with exhaustion. Which is more honest? Today, Tadayoshi answered. Yesterday you were motivated. Today, you're fulfilling duty. One fades. The other stays. Kaido placed him back into the same stance. Yamato Damashii isn't something you feel, Kaido said. It's something you practice until it defines you. What did you study in your books? Kaido asked. Battle strategy, Tadayoshi replied through clenched teeth. Tactics and formations. And did that make you a warrior? No. Why? Tadayoshi paused, focusing on the pain. Because I never acted. Partially correct, Kaido said. The knowledge you studied matters. Chinese texts teach strategy and wisdom. But knowledge without Yamato Damashii is incomplete. His legs began to shake again. You can understand how to win every battle, Kaido continued, but without the spirit to step onto the field, that knowledge is useless. Yamato Damashii is what turns understanding into movement. Tadayoshi collapsed. 20 minutes, Kaido said. 5 more than yesterday. He nodded once. Progress. Not because you're stronger, your body is weaker today. You've progressed because you learned pain isn't the enemy. Hesitation is. Centuries later, a behavioral researcher at the University of Tokyo, after studying samurai culture for over 15 years, would explain that Yamato Damashii during the Heian period was never about militarism. It was about the difference between borrowed intellectual knowledge and internal practical wisdom. The Japanese valued Chinese scholarship, but without decisive action, that knowledge remained lifeless. It was the difference between knowing how swimming works and entering the water. Chapter 5. The Lesson of the River. On the third day, Tadayoshi arrived just before sunrise. Kaido was waiting, but this time they left the clearing. Today, Kaido said, you'll learn the difference between acting when you want to and acting because you must. They walked to a nearby river. The water moved quickly and looked unforgiving. Kaido pointed to a rock in the center. You will stand there until I tell you to leave. For how long? Tadayoshi asked. Until you understand. He stepped into the river. The cold was sharp, almost painful. He climbed onto the rock, slipped, nearly fell, but regained balance and assumed his stance. The water struck his legs relentlessly. After 5 minutes, his body shook uncontrollably. After 10, he lost feeling in his feet. After 15, panic set in. Every instinct screamed to escape. Master! Tadayoshi shouted. I can't endure this. Your ancestors did, Kaido called back. They stood in battle for days. They marched with open wounds. They fought until their final breath, and you can't endure cold water? But why? Tadayoshi shouted back. Why must I do this? Because it is your duty, Kaido shouted in return, his voice echoing through the forest. You asked me to teach you. You declared you would become a warrior. That was not a request. It was a statement, and statements demand responsibility. Tadayoshi closed his eyes. Tears ran down his face, mixing with the river's current. He considered quitting. He thought about leaving. It would have been simple. Then his father's words returned to him. You have the mind of a general and the heart of a scribe. He remembered the laughter of the other nobles. The warrior of books. Years of reading, planning, and thinking, and nothing had changed. He was not that man anymore. Not here. Not now. The cold remained. The pain remained. But something inside him shifted. He stopped resisting it. He accepted it. I am here because I chose to be. I stay because I must. Time passed without him noticing. Eventually Kaido shouted, "Get out!" Tadayoshi stepped off the rock. His legs barely responded. Kaido helped him from the river and guided him toward a fire that was already burning. 45 minutes, Kaido said. You stayed 45 minutes. Tadayoshi stared at him in disbelief. It had felt endless. Do you understand what happened? Kaido asked. For the first 15 minutes, you fought the discomfort. That drained you. Then something changed. You stopped resisting. You accepted the cold as your duty. When you did that, it became easier, not because the pain lessened, but because you stopped adding mental suffering to physical pain. Kaido added wood to the fire. This is Yamato Damashii. It is not about numbing yourself. It is about refusing to let feelings control your actions. You felt cold. You wanted to leave. But you stayed, because duty does not negotiate with discomfort. Chapter 6. The Master explains the origin. That evening, Kaido allowed Tadayoshi to return early. Before leaving, they sat beside the river, listening to the rushing water. Do you know why I taught you Yamato Damashii? Kaido asked. Tadayoshi shook his head. Because you are exactly the kind of man this idea was meant to help, Kaido said, looking up at the stars. Long ago, our elite studied Chinese classics, Buddhism, Confucianism, strategy, philosophy. They were intelligent men. But many were like you, full of knowledge, empty of action. Knowledge without spirit. Theory without execution. Our ancestors realized they needed a way to describe what separated those who understood from those who acted. Chinese learning, Gakumen, was valuable, but it wasn't enough. You needed Yamato Damashii, the native spirit that drives action even when desire is absent. It was not rejection of foreign ideas, Kaido continued. It was the recognition that knowledge is a tool, but spirit is the craftsman. A sword without the will to wield it is only polished metal. Tadayoshi listened carefully. Do you know what truth they uncovered? Kaido asked. Practical wisdom, making decisions under pressure, solving real problems, acting when required, does not come from books. Comes from doing. From showing up. From fulfilling duty when every instinct urges escape. That is Yamato Damashii. The difference between the scholar who discusses war and the warrior who enters it. Between writing about courage and acting with courage. Between who you were 3 days ago and who you are now. Chapter 7. The Great Temptation. By the second week, Tadayoshi had progressed. He could hold positions longer. His body began to respond. Then came the true test. It was the full moon festival. The elite gathered for music, poetry, and sake. Tadayoshi was invited. The night before, he barely slept, not from excitement, but from inner conflict. He had trained 7 days straight. One night away wouldn't matter, would it? He deserved rest. He deserved enjoyment. On the 8th morning, he did not appear at the clearing. Kaido waited. He watched the sun rise fully. Tadayoshi did not come. Tadayoshi was home, sleeping after a night of celebration. When he woke, guilt overwhelmed him. He had broken his discipline after only 1 week. The next day, he went to the clearing, expecting it to be empty. Kaido was there. His face showed no anger, only disappointment. You missed it, Kaido said. It was the festival, Tadayoshi began. Silence, Kaido said calmly. You don't owe me an explanation. You owe yourself one, and you failed. Tears filled Tadayoshi's eyes. I'm sorry. Please let me continue. It was a mistake. It was a choice, Kaido corrected. You chose comfort over duty, pleasure over commitment. And that shows you still misunderstand Yamato Damashii. You believe it applies only when convenient. Kaido turned to leave. Wait, Tadayoshi pleaded. Give me another chance. I understand now. Do you? Kaido asked, turning back. Then explain Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi inhaled deeply. It means acting even when you don't want to. Partially correct. Continue. It is duty over feeling. That is a result, not the essence. Go deeper. Tadayoshi closed his eyes. He recalled the river, the pain, the stillness. Then understanding arrived. It is identity, he said. Not behavior. When I break it, I'm not breaking a routine. I'm betraying who I said I was. Kaido remained silent, then nodded. Now you are beginning to understand. Yesterday you chose pleasure. Today you must accept consequence. Every choice carries a cost. What followed shattered Tadayoshi. Kaido made him hold the stance for 2 full hours. No mercy. As Tadayoshi collapsed, shaking and crying, Kaido said, "This pain was chosen yesterday. When you abandon duty, consequences do not disappear. They wait and return stronger." In that moment, Tadayoshi realized something that changed his understanding of discipline entirely. The problem was never a lack of knowledge. The problem was that he had been playing the wrong game. Chapter 8. Identity, not action. The next day, Kaido changed his approach. Instead of physical training, he told Tadayoshi to sit. Do you believe discipline is about doing hard things? Kaido asked. It is not. Discipline is about being the kind of person for whom those actions are non-negotiable. There is a difference between I should train and I am someone who trains. One is desire. The other is identity. Kaido drew lines in the dirt. When you say, I want to be a warrior, you create distance between who you are and who you want to be. That distance allows negotiation. Not today. I'm tired. But when you say, I am a warrior, there is no distance. No negotiation. Warriors train because that is what warriors do. It is not a choice. It is identity. Something clicked for Tadayoshi. So Yamato Damashii isn't forcing action. Exactly, Kaido said, smiling for the first time in weeks. It is embodying identity so fully that action becomes automatic. You stop asking whether you should act. You act because not acting contradicts who you are. The great warriors never debated whether to train, Kaido continued. The question never existed. They were warriors. Warriors train. The issue with your learning was not knowledge, Kaido said. It was identity. You saw yourself as a scholar who wanted to be a warrior, instead of a warrior who studies. Tadayoshi finally understood. In the months ahead, Kaido said, I will teach you how to change identity, not through thought, but through repetition so consistent that your body and mind accept who you have become. Chapter 9. The Transformation. The months that followed were harsh. But something essential changed within Tadayoshi. He stopped bargaining with himself. Kaido taught him a simple rule. Decide once, act 1,000 times. Tadayoshi decided who he was, not who he hoped to become, but who he already was. Then he lived as that person without hesitation for 90 days. Every morning before sunrise. No exceptions. No, just not today. No, I'm too tired. The question, am I training today, no longer existed. Of course he was. Warriors train. And he was a warrior. Around the 6th week, something unusual began to happen. Tadayoshi started waking up before his alarm. His body prepared itself automatically. By week 8, he realized he no longer thought about training at all. He simply arrived. Kaido observed this with quiet satisfaction. See what's happened? He said. Your mind has accepted it. You're no longer forcing action. It's natural now. But the real change came on day 63. Tadayoshi woke up ill, feverish, aching, his thoughts unclear. The familiar voice whispered, "You should rest today." He stood up anyway. He made his way to the clearing, unsteady. Kaido was already there and immediately noticed. "You're sick," Kaido said. "I am." "Then why did you come?" Tadayoshi answered without pause. "Because that's who I am." Kaido smiled, not briefly, but fully, with clear pride. "Now you understand," he said. "Yamato Damashii isn't about strength. It's about being unmovable, not in force, but in identity." "Go home," Kaido added gently. "Rest today. You've already proven your point. You didn't come to impress me. You came because you couldn't do otherwise. You've changed." Tadayoshi returned home, and something fundamental was different. He felt no guilt about resting, because this was not avoidance, it was intention. Warriors rest to prepare for tomorrow. Weak people rest to escape tomorrow. The difference is identity, purpose, intent. Chapter 10. The final lesson, day 90. 3 months of uninterrupted training had passed. Tadayoshi was no longer the same man. Physically, the change was obvious. Where softness once existed, there was strength. Where smooth skin once was, there were calluses. But the deeper change could not be seen. Kaido sat with him one final time. "You have completed your Ango, your intensive period of training. Now I'll tell you the truth you needed to find on your own." Yamato Damashii was never about training. It was about death and rebirth. The man who arrived here 3 months ago, the one who knew everything and did nothing, he is gone. Each morning you chose duty over comfort, you ended that version of yourself and became someone new. The books you studied were never wrong, Kaido continued. Your knowledge has value. But knowledge without spirit is a body without life. Impressive, perhaps, but lifeless. Yamato Damashii is the force that gives knowledge motion. It turns information into wisdom, theory into action, intention into reality. Kaido stood. "There's one last thing I need to show you." He led Tadayoshi to an open field. Waiting there were 20 armed men, soldiers, experienced fighters. "They are from a nearby clan," Kaido explained. "They need a leader. Someone who understands strategy and has proven the ability to act. Someone with Yamato Damashii." Tadayoshi looked from the men back to Kaido. "You're recommending me?" "No," Kaido replied. "I'm giving you your duty. You spent 3 months becoming a warrior. Now you will teach others to become warriors, not only through books, though books matter, but through example, identity, and action." Tadayoshi felt his throat tighten. "I don't know if I'm ready." "No one ever is," Kaido said. "Warriors don't wait to feel ready. They act, and readiness follows." Chapter 11. The True Meaning. Before introducing Tadayoshi to the soldiers, Kaido pulled him aside. "There's something about Yamato Damashii few people understand," he said. "Our ancestors used to say, knowledge is useless without Yamato Damashii. You've heard this before. Now you understand why it matters." "For a long time," Kaido explained, "our elite were consumed by Chinese learning, philosophy, art, strategy. It was remarkable knowledge. But many nobles understood war without ever fighting it. They studied leadership without making hard decisions. They discussed courage without testing it. They had Chinese knowledge, but lacked the spirit to apply it. And knowledge without spirit is empty." "You were the same 3 months ago," Kaido said, meeting Tadayoshi's eyes. "You could quote Sun Tzu, debate formations, explain tactics. But you had never endured strain, never forced your body beyond comfort, never acted when your mind resisted. Your knowledge was inactive. It needed a soul." "Yamato Damashii does not reject foreign knowledge," Kaido continued. "It completes it. It transforms I know into I do. It's not about culture against culture. It's about understanding that wisdom comes from 2 sources, learning and experience. And the spirit that unites them is Yamato Damashii." Tadayoshi nodded. Everything aligned. It was never about denying study. It was about fulfilling it through action. About becoming the link between understanding and reality. Go, Kaido said. Teach these men not only what you know, but who you are. Chapter 12, 5 years later. 5 years passed from that first morning in the clearing. Tadayoshi, now 29, had become what he once only imagined. He was not only a warrior, but a general, a leader followed not through fear, but respect. He commanded 300 soldiers. He had won 3 decisive battles. But more important than victory was what he passed on. Yamato Damashii. His soldiers were not the strongest. They did not have the finest equipment. But they had something their enemies lacked. They did not negotiate internally. When orders were given, they acted, without hesitation, without inner debate. Not blindly, but with identity. We are Tadayoshi's soldiers, they said. And Tadayoshi's soldiers do not break. One day, a young recruit approached him. Intelligent, well-read, uncertain, reminding Tadayoshi of himself. General, the young man said, I've read the manuals. I know the techniques. But in training I freeze. I understand what to do, but I can't act. Tadayoshi smiled. He had waited years for this moment. Because you have knowledge without spirit, he said. Knowledge tells you what Yamato Damashii makes you do. Come tomorrow before sunrise, he added. I'll teach you what no book can. And the next morning, in a forest clearing, a new cycle began. A Japanese historian specializing in the Heian period later explained. Yamato Damashii was never anti-intellectual. It was pro-action. As elites became lost in theory, this concept demanded execution. It did not reject knowledge. It demanded that knowledge be lived. It was the call to unite thought with movement, study with action, understanding with doing. Chapter 13. Distortion and Return. Tadayoshi lived until the age of 67. Over his lifetime, he witnessed major changes in Japan, yet he never forgot what Keijo had taught him. He continued to live by Yamato Damashii until the end of his life. However, the story of Yamato Damashii did not end with figures like Tadayoshi and Keijo. Centuries later, in the years leading up to World War II, the concept was misused. Militaristic governments took Yamato Damashii, originally a principle about uniting knowledge with action and having the spirit to follow through, and reshaped it into something destructive. They claimed Yamato Damashii meant dying for the emperor. They portrayed it as blind nationalism, as proof that the Japanese spirit was superior to all others. They insisted soldiers should fight to the death, not from personal duty, but from unquestioning obedience. This was not Yamato Damashii. It was propaganda disguised with the name of something meaningful. The true Yamato Damashii, the one Keijo taught, the one that reshaped Tadayoshi, had nothing to do with national superiority. It focused on personal growth. Not being better than others, but being better than your former self. It was about the internal struggle, ending the version of yourself that delays, excuses, and knows without acting, and becoming someone who executes naturally, guided not by emotion but by identity. Today, the term Yamato Damashii still carries the marks of that period, and many people in Japan avoid using it. But its core meaning has never disappeared. It appears every time someone chooses responsibility over comfort. Every time someone shows up despite resistance. Every time knowledge becomes action, theory becomes practice, and intention becomes reality. Chapter 14. Applying Yamato Damashii. You don't need to be a samurai to live by Yamato Damashii. You don't even need to be Japanese. At its foundation, Yamato Damashii is not cultural, it is universal. Here is the truth. Motivation is unreliable. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings shift constantly. You feel driven on Monday. By Wednesday you're tired. By Friday you quit. On Sunday, you promise to start again. This cycle destroys goals, limits potential, and prevents growth. Yamato Damashii offers a way out. This is how it works. First, stop making promises about what you will do. Start making declarations about who you are. Don't say, I go to the gym. Say, I am someone who trains. Don't say, I should read more. Say, I am someone who reads daily. The difference sounds small, but its impact is significant. Second, recognize that duty is not optional. When you say, I am someone who does this, you are not setting a goal. You are defining an identity. And identity does not take days off. You do not stop being yourself for a day. You are who you are every single day. Third, accept that change involves discomfort. Breaking habits of ease, building discipline, and letting go of short-term desires is painful. But pain works like medicine. It is unpleasant at first, yet it leads to recovery and strength. Fourth, understand that knowledge without action is misleading. You can study fitness for years and remain weak. You can read business books and stay broke. You can learn about relationships and still feel alone. Because you may have knowledge, but not the spirit to act. Knowledge shows the direction. Yamato Damashii makes you move. Fifth, consistency matters more than intensity. Tadayoshi did not become a warrior through one extreme effort. He became one by showing up for 90 straight days, even when sick, tired, or unwilling. Change does not come from a single heroic moment. It comes from repeated acts of duty carried out over time. So don't chase impossible goals. Instead of studying 16 hours in one day, study 3 or 4 hours every day without interruption. The daily total matters less than how long you sustain the habit. But there is one final lesson Ko taught Tadayoshi on the very last day, one that reshapes how discipline is understood. Chapter 15, The Final Secret. On the final day of training, after 90 full days, Ko said something that seemed contradictory. Now that you understand Yamato Damashii, he said, I'll teach you when to break it. Tadayoshi was confused. Break it? You said duty is non-negotiable. It is, Ko replied. But there is a difference between stopping from weakness and adjusting from wisdom. Yamato Damashii is not about punishment. It is not about damaging your body or mind in the name of rigid consistency. It exists to serve a greater purpose, not to enforce rules without thought. If you are truly ill, not avoiding effort, but genuinely sick, resting is not breaking Yamato Damashii. It is honoring it. You rest so you can perform better tomorrow, not because you want to escape today. The difference lies in intention. Warriors rest strategically to fight effectively. Cowards rest emotionally to avoid conflict. The action may look the same, but the motive is opposite. The test is simple, Ko explained. Ask yourself, why am I stopping today? If the answer is because it's uncomfortable, difficult, or you feel entitled to stop, then you are negotiating. And that thought and act. But if the answer is because recovery is necessary for better performance, that is not negotiation. That is strategy. Yamato Damashii without wisdom becomes fanaticism, Ko said. Yamato Damashii guided by wisdom becomes mastery. This was the final lesson, and the most important one. The purpose of Yamato Damashii was never to create people who act blindly. It was to shape individuals who act with understanding, who know discipline serves something larger. Duty is not confinement. It is freedom, the freedom to decide once and live consistently without constant inner debate. Tadayoshi's story ends here, but the principle does not. That truth is available now, in this moment. You don't need more motivation. Motivation fades. You need an identity so solid that action is no longer optional. It is automatic. All the knowledge you have, books, courses, strategies, means nothing without the will to execute. Knowledge without Yamato Damashii remains unused. You must accept that the current version of yourself, the one that plans but delays, understands but avoids, promises but fails, must end. And you end it daily by fulfilling your duty, by acting when it's inconvenient, by remaining consistent when it's uncomfortable. In its place, something new forms. Someone steady. Someone who does not negotiate. Someone others observe and ask, how does he do it? And the answer is simple. He doesn't do it. That is Yamato Damashii. It is not a Japanese method. It is a human truth. The difference between wanting and becoming, between unused knowledge and lived wisdom. When you finally grasp this, not just intellectually, but deeply, you will no longer need motivation. You will not be forcing action. You will be living as someone who acts. If this video changed how you think about discipline and action, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss future content. If you're watching on your phone, engaging with the video helps it reach more people. Remember, knowledge without Yamato Damashii is inactive information. Knowledge with Yamato Damashii has the power to change your life. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Every day you delay, the old version of you gains strength. One day, it may win unless you act today. If you've stayed until the end, thank you. That alone shows commitment many people lack. Now apply it. Take action. Stay present. Move forward with purpose. I'll see you